All right, let's just jump right into this. $3.5 billion. I mean, if we translate that into local currency, we're talking roughly 29,000 crores. It's a scale of wealth that is honestly just almost impossible to wrap your head around. Seriously, just take a second and try to picture it. We're talking about the kind of money that literally buys private islands, skyscrapers, and, well, absolute total secrecy.
But here is the crazy part. What if I told you that an entire empire of that exact size, one built completely in the shadows of the digital world, was brought crashing down by just one single, completely routine phone call? We are about to dive into one of the wildest mysteries to ever hit the crypto world. And the absolute craziest part? It wasn't solved by some massive supercomputer. It was practically handed to the police by the suspect himself.
Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're unpacking the $3.5 billion phone call. I am so incredibly pumped to walk you through this because it is just an absolute roller coaster of a true crime story. We've got dark web mysteries, bizarre plot twists, and mind-boggling piles of cash. By the time we're done here, you'll see exactly how the world's top investigators spent 6 long years chasing a ghost, only for that ghost to essentially open the front door and invite them right inside.
Section 1. The costly 911 call.
Okay, let's set the scene here. Enter Jimmy Zong. He's this guy living in Athens, Georgia, in a super high-tech house with top-of-the-line security cameras. On September 13th, 2019, Jimmy picks up his phone and dials 911 to report that his house has been burglarized. The stolen amount? $400,000. Now, look, to you, to me, and definitely to the local Athens Police Department, $400,000 missing from a living room is a huge deal. But to Jimmy, when you compare it to the $3.5 billion secret he was sitting on, that $400,000 was literally just pocket change. See, Jimmy actually had a really friendly relationship with the local cops. He'd even let them use his security cameras for other neighborhood cases before. So he felt totally comfortable calling them over what he basically thought was just a minor hiccup.
Section 2. The fake crypto genius. So the local police hit a dead end, and Jimmy actually goes out and hires his own private detective, a guy named Martinelli. But as Martinelli starts poking around looking for this burglar, a much bigger question pops up. How on earth does a young guy like Jimmy have hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash just sitting around in the first place? See, Jimmy was a University of Georgia grad living this absolute party boy lifestyle. We're talking about dropping $500,000, that's about 1.25 crores, on a single night out. He'd gather a bunch of friends, throw them on private jets, and fly off to LA just to watch a football game. He'd stroll into bars and buy free drinks for the entire place. When people asked, hey, how do you afford all this? Jimmy would just casually brush it off, saying he was a super successful Bitcoin trader. And hey, crypto was booming at the time, so people just believed him. Well, right here is where things take a massive turn. Because of that 911 call reporting the missing $400,000, Jimmy's name gets flagged in the system. The regional cybercrime unit enters the chat, and they take one look at Jimmy's setup and realize the math just does not add up. Jimmy had this tiny rig in his house, just 2 little Bitcoin miners. The authorities, who actually understand how blockchain mining works, took one look and said, no way. There's absolutely zero chance 2 basic mining machines could generate the kind of insane wealth needed to fund private jets and $500,000 parties.
Section 3. The Silk Road Connection.
You see, for 7 long years, this exact cybercrime unit had been losing sleep over a totally different, massive case. They'd been hunting for the missing pieces of one of the greatest digital heists in history, and suddenly they're staring right at Jimmy and his unexplained billions. This whole thing ties back to the infamous Silk Road. If you're not familiar with it, the easiest way to picture the Silk Road is like the Amazon of the dark web. Instead of books and electronics, it was an underground marketplace for weapons, drugs, and illicit goods, all bought and sold using untraceable Bitcoin.
Let's look at the timeline. Back in 2012, the Silk Road gets hacked and a staggering 51,680 Bitcoins just vanish. The very next year, in 2013, the FBI swoops in, shuts down the Silk Road entirely, and seizes a massive amount of Bitcoin from its founder. But those 51,680 stolen Bitcoins? Still completely missing in action. Fast forward all the way to 2019, and Jimmy makes that fatal 911 call. Guys, he was so incredibly close to getting away with this forever.
So, how do the police finally connect the dots? They strongly suspected Jimmy, but they needed hard proof. And since Jimmy had literally called them to help find his missing $400,000, the cops used that exact investigation as a Trojan horse. They send in 3 plainclothes officers wearing body cams, pretending they're just there to give him a friendly update on his burglary case. While they're chatting, they casually ask about his crypto setup.
Jimmy, feeling totally safe, proudly opens up his laptop to show off his two little miners, and in a split second, while Jimmy's distracted, one of the officers quickly copies down a specific Bitcoin address from the screen. And boom, the blockchain experts run that exact address, and the transaction history matches perfectly with the stolen Silk Road funds. Got him.
Section 4. The Cheetos Tin Discovery.
With that undeniable digital fingerprint, the investigation kicks into overdrive. The officers go back to Jimmy's house, but this time, no friendly smiles. They show up armed with a search warrant and literally tear the place apart. They're knocking on floor tiles, pulling at wall panels, desperately hunting for some high-tech secret vault. And where do they finally find it? Inside a cheap, ordinary Cheetos popcorn tin. Tucked away under a greasy little towel was a tiny computer chip. I mean, you honestly cannot make this up. The visual contrast is just insane. Billions of dollars in highly sophisticated digital assets shoved inside a snack tin.
So what was actually on that little chip? It was a hardware wallet holding roughly 51,000 Bitcoins. By the time 2020 rolled around, the value of that single tiny piece of hardware was $3.5 billion. Jimmy Zong wasn't just some loud party boy. He was the ultimate digital phantom. He was the guy who managed to rob the most notorious thieves on the dark web.
All right, let's break down how he actually pulled off this massive heist back in 2012. Jimmy later confessed that he only went onto the Silk Road originally to buy drugs to feed his own habit. But Jimmy really understood blockchain code. One day, while taking his own money out, he spotted a tiny, critical loophole in the site's programming. He realized that if he clicked withdraw multiple times in the exact same fraction of a second, the system would glitch out and pay him his balance over and over again. So he just hammered that loophole, draining 51,680 Bitcoins from the accounts of other dark web users. Back then, it was worth about $600,000. He literally just sat on it, did nothing, and watched it balloon into billions.
The immediate fallout from that 2012 hack is actually kind of hilarious. When Jimmy drained those accounts, the founder of the Silk Road definitely noticed. I mean, 600 grand was gone. But think about it for a second. You run an illegal underground drug cartel. You can't exactly pick up the phone and call the FBI to report a robbery, right? So the founder just sends Jimmy a private message. He literally forgives the massive theft and says, "Keep the money, just please teach me how you did it so I can patch the glitch."
Section 5. The Unclaimed Billions.
In 2023, Jimmy Zong was finally sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in federal prison for wire fraud. Because he decided to pick up his phone and dial 911 over a few $100,000, he lost his freedom and $3.5 billion. But that brings us to the final, absolute, most mind-bending part of this entire explainer. After the FBI seized all that Bitcoin, they followed standard protocol. They put out a public notice asking the victims of the 2012 hack to come forward and claim their stolen money. Millions and millions of dollars were just sitting there legally, waiting to be handed back to their rightful owners. Do you know how many people stepped forward? Zero. Not a single person. And the reason why is obvious, right? Because if you claim that money, you are explicitly confessing to the FBI that you were actively buying or selling illicit goods on the Silk Road. You'd essentially be turning yourself in. So the money just sat there, totally unclaimed. It really makes you wonder, if you were in their shoes, knowing millions of dollars were legally yours for the taking, would you step forward? Think about that for a bit. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and always keep questioning the incredible stories hiding right beneath the surface.